Who's interested in solar power? Anybody? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about solar power today. And since the subject is integrity, I'd like to digress a bit. I went to the college, as you can't tell. And I think from discussions today, when you look at education and you look at the College of Worcester, I realized that the college has kind of lent me integrity. As a result of being a graduate, people I meet, they make an assumption of me as a result, and it's actually quite good. Worcester has a great reputation. But I also know that integrity is taught. And in my world, I see my parents as the two most integrity-filled people in the world. And as a result of that, that's given me a baseline as to what is integrity in my life. And to me, it's about action. Integrity is about doing something as actually like a verb. And in doing so, I think we realize, too, it's a judgment. Because when you determine whether I have integrity or not, you're making a decision about things I've done, said, look like, hang around with. Well, I also think that you can transfer it. Best example I have is that I followed an older sister all through school. And she was great. She got straight A's, she cleaned her room, did everything perfect, and I followed her. And as a result, every single teacher I had when I went into the new school said, "Oh, you're Elizabeth's brother." And I disappointed them greatly after that point, but I started off a lot easier as a result. So I want to talk to you about solar, but I think we need to look at integrity in terms of our energy use. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how this works, because there's a great deal of misunderstanding about how solar actually works in the real world. We talk about how nothing good comes from government research or basic research, but every bit of solar power that we have is a result of the space program, and it was designed and first installed at Lewis Research Center in the late 50s in Cleveland. It's still running. So, is it proven? Absolutely. Would we put a non-proven product there? No. But it also has had just incredible longevity over time. The thing that we come up against more than anything is not whether we have a need for the power, whether it can be generated correctly, but it's naysaying. And you don't recognize this guy, and every time he came out to speak, he talked about how things were perfect, that everything was going fine, and we don't need this, we don't need that. Our life is perfect as it is. The reality is today in renewable energy, your biggest proponents are very small people like myself that have made a decision that we're going to try to place a flag in the ground and we're going to try to really make a difference. And it's about energy. Well, in the state of Ohio, we have a law that says a percentage of our power must be created via renewable energy. That makes it so there is a solar market at all. Within 25 miles of here, there is a utility in a small town that just recently said, no, we will not allow you to install solar. They can actually do that. A utility can say, we will not take your solar power. So, there's always someone like this telling you why you can't do it, why it's impossible, why it's not needed, why it's too expensive, and why you're just a hippie. Because solar is supposedly non-functional and not realistic. Plus, it's too difficult. Nobody understands it. Well, the reality is it's very, very simple. And if you'll allow me a few moments, I'd like to tell you about the different types and the way it works. The question I get more than anything is, we don't have enough sun. Not only in Ohio, but pretty much anywhere. And you really get that question here in Ohio because the assumption is that it's gray all the time. Well, this map will show you that everywhere in the country has enough sun to produce solar power commercially and profitably. Many of you know, because you follow this, that Germany is the most installed solar country in the world, right? Well, if you consider the sun, the worst sun we have in the country is Alaska. There is no part of Germany that has more sun than Alaska, yet by far and away is the leader in solar power. So solar is a decision. And that's the complexity. It really is not. And if we look at this, we see the sun comes and hits, in this case, a completely, no moving parts, silica. The sun hits that, it creates a single electron. Those electrons join together and run out the back of that panel. And as it comes out as direct current. And as a result, it cannot be used in the house. It can go directly to batteries. DC charges straight up to batteries. And as you bring this into your house, you would put an inverter on it, and it would allow you to use it. If you didn't, at that point, you could run it directly into a battery system, or you can run it right into your house and start using it instantaneously. Let's say that this is 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you're not home. It's one of the highest energy usage times of the day. The power you'd be generating there and not using on your house just went to your neighbors or down the street. So you are actually having an effect far beyond just yourself. But if you look at this, this is not complex. And as a result of the fact that it is truly an inanimate object creating electricity and putting it into your house, there's just not a lot of math on you need. So let's look at the different types, because they're confusing a lot of times, but they all are trying to do the same thing. How do you take the sun and make solar power? This is called concentrated solar power. You can see how you have the mirrors, they're all directed, and they're going to come at that center piece. That can create 25 kilowatts worth of power. Well, that's enough for probably 5 or 6 homes. And that's enough power to run them completely as if the sun were shining all day. This one is one of the ones that we hear the most about because they're immensely expensive to build. But if you see all of these mirrors, the goal is that they're going to all point to one central spot, that tall area. And that heat is going to heat up molten salt. Well, in the daytime, they're going to heat up salt. They're going to create electricity as a result. And in the evening, they're going to have a whole big reservoir that they're able to make power at night. Now we start to lose the intermittency, which everyone complains about. The sun's not shining, solar doesn't work. The other thing that we're finding is the ingenious use of materials and where you can put solar. If you look at the top example, this is what's called Thinfilm, made by a company here in Ohio called First Solar, one of the leaders in the technology. And this will allow you to put solar just about anywhere. In this case, you can basically glue it right to the roof. The next example is what's referred, these are single solar panels combined as a group, put on a mount, and are able to follow the sun. Now, if you live in Arizona and you have over 8 hours of sun per day, it makes it worth it for you to buy the motors that actually turn the solar panels with the sun. That'll increase your productivity by 25% just by moving with the sun. I mentioned thin film. One of the major areas of growth right now is in translucent solar panels, almost transparent. You can put that anywhere. If it's not going to cover your window, you put it over your window at your office, outside your dorm room. Nanotechnology has the greatest opportunity to change solar power of any other scientific development at the time. But what this means, as a result of flexibility, is that we take advanced operating bases for our military and we're able to produce power without generators, without gasoline that costs $900 to get there, and the convoy gets blown up and people get killed getting it there. You don't have to do that. And these get folded up and they're put in their backpack and they go on. So now if I have one set of batteries that runs my radio and I'm able to charge it, I don't need 6 more. These guys are carrying too much as it is. But point being is we take an application like this, the savings aspects in dollars are just ridiculous, but we also have human life at stake. So you can really go deep in terms of the value that this is going to represent. I mentioned nanotechnology. That panel right there in those 2 hands will produce as much solar as one now that's 6 feet by 5. And we're hoping for Moore's Law. We're hoping that we're going to see this massive jump and have it become more efficient all the time. It's not going to be the case unless nanotechnology. Nanotechnology represents the opportunity to take and have a panel this small, this flexible, on your window to create real power. The other applications that you start to see more of now is that it doesn't have to be on the roof. Frankly, I do not want to put it on your roof because no one can see it. And the more people that see solar, the more people do not have the mystery, and the more people who will use it. But a carport structure, this is ideal. If you've got a business, you're going to have electric cars, you will be charging electric cars. As much as we look at it now and think that's a long ways off, it's clearly coming. But this here, that car panel right there, that carport right there would create enough power for a considerable sized building during the day. Plus, if you're anywhere where it's hot, it's what's better than coming out to a car when you don't have sun. When you take existing buildings, too, this is not about being ugly. This is about adding function to a building that already exists, and I would submit to you that that doesn't really hurt the appearance of a school. That there, every 4 panels, because they're not as efficient as the new ones, is a kilowatt. If you take 10 of those, you would power a very large house. So small amounts become real power. Guy on the top here, this is similar to what's on the Scott Center. These panels are attached to railing and racking. You can stand on them. You can't break them. They're warranted for production output for 25 years. They're like the computers used to be, that if you turn it on and it worked, it would work forever. Well, this is the case. If you put electricity through this, starts generating it, there's very little that's going to stop it unless you would somehow break it. But you can stand on it. Hail can hit it. Another ingenious thing, and this is how the Scott Center is attached. The seamed roof was there. The ability for the solar panels to go over top of that, to be connected directly to the roof without any punctures. There's no holes through the roof. Very effective. Now, I mentioned to you that there's production warranties, and you can see how much output is. You know that you can go look at the Scott Center any day and see how much it's producing, how much it has produced, how much it's done in terms of remediation and carbon, cars off the road. This is an example that would be going all the time. So if you would start to lose capability, you'd be able to see this in your daily monitoring. We talk about people who are adopting solar as being early adopters, and why are they doing it, and it costs so much money, and what is the payback? I submit to you that everything we buy, very few of them we ask what the payback is. And we certainly don't do it with appliances in our homes. Well, I view solar as an appliance. It creates electricity and you get to use it in your house. Right now in your house you can pay off solar in 7 to 9 years, which is actually a long time for most people as they look at it. But it's going to last for 40. So you're pre-buying power for 40 years at the price you're paying now. Do you think that energy is going to become more expensive in 40 years? The answer is yes. And as a result of that, your savings would just increase. The companies that are actually leading the way will surprise you. Walmart. Walmart this year in Ohio has installed 9 megawatts worth of solar. That's a lot of power. That's enough power for 4,500 homes. And it's running their stores during the day. Costco, Kohl's, IKEA, Macy's, McGraw-Hill, Johnson & Johnson, Staples, Campbell's, Walgreens. What's the common denominator? Consumer touch. They are expecting you to make a buy at their store because they're greener than the next company. And it's a bet now because it's very difficult to ever quantify consumer behavior. But in this case, clearly, this is an enormous bet by retailers to make if they don't think it's going to make you buy stuff from them. And certainly at a higher price. This is Evening Street Elementary School. I had worked my career professionally, traveling, working for software companies, being successful. I was able to come up with an idea to put solar on this school And the day this thing turned on, I realized that this was the most important day of my life. That, not that everything else I had done did not have any meaning at all, but now I really knew that I was onto something, because those kids that go to that school for the next 40 years are going to know that over half of that school is powered by solar. And if you're going to get to anybody, it's the young kids, because when they go home, they torture their parents about turning off the water and turning off the lights, and as a result, they save an additional 10%. Solar Cascade, as a company, as a solar company, really grew out of the idea that if people are interested in solar, they'd be willing to put some money to it, and they would agree that not-for-profits, schools, hospitals could gain advantage by having it, because they're never going to be able to spend money. They have a limited budget, they're not going to be able to do it. Then you add this, and you say, we're going to use returning soldiers to build all of these systems. Well, if you're keeping any kind of track on what's happened to our soldiers and what's happening to them now, there's nothing that we could do to provide more help than employment and training in a positive environment. So everything we do is going to use Solar by Soldiers, which is another company. But it kind of smells like integrity to me, because the moment I heard about this, I said, that's it. I'm not building the mechanical part of the company, the one that's going to install. I don't need to. I want to use soldiers. And I want to use as many of them as possible. And I'd like to do this all the way across the country. Now, still small. At this point, the projects we have are 7 schools in the Worthington School District, of which my criteria was that they be elementary, that it be visible, and that it be incorporated in the curriculum. 7 schools. The first 2 will be an elementary school, Colonial Hills, and an alternative high school. I really was enthralled by the opportunity to potentially put solar on my home school district. But what I found out was that most people didn't want to help me put solar on my school district because we got money. I hadn't thought of it that way. So really you have to think in an integrity sense what you're giving away, who you're giving it to. And are they the most needy? And when you look at Worthington schools, it's going to be a very important thing. This, however, I find much more to my liking. It's an NPR station that's struggling to exist, and every single month, if they don't have to pay power, they go on. The Third-Hand Bicycle Co-op. I'm a biker. They let people come in and repair their bikes. They'll let you sell your bike, buy a cheap bike, all through donations. Going to put 3 kilowatts worth of power on the top of the roof. They're never going to pay for power again. And they're going to send power back onto the grid. So, since I'm actually over time, what we're trying to do is give electricity. And so if you say that I'm going to give you something that now you're not going to have to pay for, and the hope from the gift perspective is that the cost of what you're giving goes up, means that you're going to have a gift that really does keep on giving. 40 years worth. Organizations are selected by the Board of Advisors, which is me. So at this point, the raising of the money has been far more difficult than the finding of the projects. And lastly, I'll say that if you're dog people at all, if you had questions about my integrity, it's got to be over. Thank you.